Speaking about AI, the next topic I want to talk about was a new Sam Altman interview with the TED Audio Collective. Now, there was a period there where Sam was giving interviews every other day, and he was sort of saying basically the same things over and over. But it's been a little while since I've caught an interview with him, and he's said a couple of little things that I thought were new and interesting. So maybe let me rattle some of these off, Mike, and I'd love for you to pick up any of them that seem interesting to you. Maybe you want to unpack. Um, the first is that AI beats humans at empathy and art on blind tests. And when you don't tell the person, hey, this was created by AI, this response, this conversation or this art, they will rate the AI's empathy and artwork higher than human art and empathy, expressions of empathy, in a blind test, which I thought was incredible. And I will say I have personally been talking to ChatGPT about some stuff, some thoughts I've been having, and its level of insight and empathy is shocking, like shocking. The other point they made was people prefer the humans, or I sort of just said this, once they know that the other party is AI. They'll say, I like the empathy from this answer, this empathy answer over this one, or this piece of art over this one. And until you say, well, that's the AI one, they're like, oh, I don't like that. So yeah, it only works on blind tests. They've also shown studies where the top scientists have become 15% more productive when using AI as a collaboration partner for research and writing papers and so on. The rest are not becoming more productive. So you have to be kind of a top 15% scientist in terms of your productivity and the quality of your work to actually get a benefit from AI. You're kind of not only are they better at the science, they're better at using AI to create the science, which was interesting. But the rest, or rather, actually, but most scientists, I think it was something like 80% are reporting less satisfaction in their work because they're kind of just working with and synthesizing AI, research and other things. So they're having less fun, but the top 15% are more productive. Sam believes that people are not going to compare themselves to what AI is doing. They're still going to care about relative status between people and relative skills between people. The example, I've heard him say this before, the example is AI chess can destroy any chess player in the world, but people are playing chess now more than ever. Humans are playing chess against other humans more than ever, and against AI more than ever. It's just people don't care. There's AI races now, like AI F1 EV type races, where there's autonomous Formula One style cars racing around, and people just don't care as much as they care about Lewis Hamilton racing around the track. So he's like, people still going to care about people. Another thing they talked about, a lot of these are about new studies. 20% of people now, the study has shown, will let go of a conspiracy theory they believe, when talking to an AI, whereas they will not let go of a conspiracy theory typically talking to another human being, because their ego is involved and it's like their identity gets wrapped up in the conspiracy theory. But when they know they're talking to an AI about a conspiracy theory, the AI will sort of just unpick it and unravel it, and they will more readily stop believing the fake conspiracy theory. And apparently what's been shown is they're then less likely to believe many other conspiracy theories that they weren't actually directly talking about to the AI about.
Funny, the conspiracy theory stat and the empathy stat, I think, actually have a similar reason, right? So
Yes.
if I'm talking to a human about a conspiracy theory and I'm hearing their response, I'm assuming they're taking their predisposition and their opinions and then formatting the response. So they're not coming at it from a pure knowledge and truth basis. They're really coming through their lens, right? And thus I might not trust them. But if I'm talking to AI, I'm assuming AI has no specific viewpoint or motivation. AI basically is reciting to me facts. Like, I assume it's talking to a very educated encyclopedia, and thus it's going to be able to inform me without any kind of predisposition or judgment. And I think it's similar to empathy, is like, if I express to you some tragedy I'm going through, your empathetic response to me is through your lens of tragedies and experiences you've had, and then trying to think through what I might need to hear that you may have wanted to hear. It's all these layers of you and communicating back to me. Whereas if I express something to AI, it's not giving me its tragedy and its experience, its predisposition. It's simply looking for the most empathetic response it could get me off of the knowledge it has off of me. Right. So in certain cases, it sounds like if AI is talking to a human and there's no bias from the AI beyond the knowledge is consumed, it has no perspective or judgment, then basically it's going to give me a response that I might trust more or feel more connected to. Versus when I'm talking to a human, I know they're bringing all their baggage to that response. They're bringing all their feelings to that response, which also, by the way, brings up the question of psychology, right? Like if I'm talking to a psychologist, how much of their response is education versus their own personal feelings? Because you can't remove their own personal feelings. Whereas when I'm talking to an AI psychologist, they have no personal feelings, they have no personal experiences. So they're only giving me a clinical response, which may be the empathy or the response I need.
I think you're right. Exactly. So I would summarize this as like, we believe the AI to have no feelings and to be dispassionate. And therefore, when it's expressing empathy, I think that feels fake. And so we recoil from the fake empathy. But when it's expressing facts about a potential conspiracy theory, we think that that's dispassionate and having no emotion, so we can trust it more. So the our belief about its lack of feelings and real world experience is a double-edged sword. It works against it when we think it's expressing fake empathy, works for it when we think it's just giving us the information about the conspiracy theory.
But was your statistic on empathy that people liked the AI's empathetic response more than the humans or less than the humans?
They liked it more in a blind study. So the
Right.
moment they found out it was AI, there was revulsion.
Oh, interesting. So in theory, it's better at communicating empathy because it has no predisposition. But the moment you hear it, it loses credibility because you don't trust its response because it hasn't had the human experience.
Precisely.
Fascinating, even though it's in theory more empathetic.
Well,
Yeah.
it's better at expressing or faking empathy.
Well, it's kind of like it does everything clinically and perfectly by the book because it's not in theory skipping any steps, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
saying if a robot sat down and you didn't know it was a robot and it ate a meal and every mannerism it had was completely perfect, the way it picked up its fork and knife and ate and had conversation, you might be like, well, this robot was completely unbelievable. The moment you heard it was a robot, you might just throw away the entire experience as basically falsified,
That's
right?
right. That's
So
right.
you're kind of
Yeah,
saying people
exactly.
value the human condition and the human connection, even if the rule sets for society are better executed by AI.
That's right. I think this also comes down to theory of mind, right? So human beings are, I guess using some combination of empathy and, internal simulation, always imagining what the other person is thinking, feeling, acting, and trying to understand their credibility, their truth, the shared connection. And so if you're using your theory of mind and you're going, oh, this is just a fucking simulation based on, weights and it's like, this is not real. And so yeah, there's something about the veracity of the other entity's expression and experience that must be there.
Yeah, and I mean to your point with art, look, let's just take writing. So
Yeah.
there's no doubt that with the data that's been formatted, AI should be able to write the best movie ever created for you.
Mhm.
Like if it knew you, it could give you a script or a book or a story that should be completely perfect for you, right? But
Yes,
you also may choose to hate it if it wasn't written by human, even though it might be the most entertaining and engaging piece of content you've ever consumed.
that's right.
Which just means that we generally discount product from technology.
Yes, I mean so far, this might be a problem with like, we used to call people on the phone, and now if we did it now, we would be like, well, why the hell are you calling me? Like just like text, right? And then our kids probably never even think to call someone. Why would you call someone? It makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
And so cultural norms and mores change, and I think these things will evolve. I think it's only a matter of time until people start. I mean, there's already sporadic reports of this, but I think it's only a matter of time until people fall deeply in love with AI and robots, and this is going to be a thing.
Interesting question. Like, let's say AI creates this piece of art, and let's say you see it and you don't know it's AI, and you look at it and you're like, this is the most wonderful piece of art I've ever seen because it's created art especially for you. And if I told you it's AI and it created it in 5 seconds, you might be like, I hate that. If I told you it's AI and it took 5 days, the question is, would you feel differently?
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, if you thought to yourself, oh, like, because what we're lacking here is time, right? Because like if a human writes a book, you're like, that took an immense amount of time and effort and creativity to write the book. If AI write the books in 3 seconds, you may not respect it because it only took 3 seconds. So the question is, if you added time back in as a variable and said, well, no, the AI took 3 years to write this book, and it's the greatest book ever created, would you then be like, oh, I really like this book?
That's so interesting. So you know how humans have these innate senses that kind of tell you like if something is far away or close, and we're not conscious of it, right? Which is like if the mountain's far away, it's more hazy, and we just know that, and
Hmm.
so and we just because we've just always had that in our experience. And what you're saying is we've always innately understood that more time means more effort, which means more value. And so just by applying time, we immediately we apply human labor to the effort. So not only are we looking at theory of mind, we're looking at theory of work and proof of work. And the way you can take this to a logical conclusion is Bitcoin valuable because it takes time to mine, right? And these UX tricks, Mike, where you're signing up for these services and there's like calculating your IBS score, calculating your personal fitness plan, and the progress bar is like moving slowly and it's like calculating, and it is fake. It's completely fake, but we value it more because it took time, it took effort. You're right. Adding time delay makes it seem more valuable. Yeah.
Well, let me give you an example. Let's say that you used to be 300 pounds and now you're 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And you said, I went on Ozempic and I lost the weight in 2 months, versus you saying, I worked out for a year and this is my
Mm.
result. Do I think of you differently? Do I respect you differently because of time/effort? Or as your side with AI, you could also prescribe value. You say, well, we created a machine that runs AI, but the machine is all gold parts. It's a $50 million AI physical machine. And even if you said it was assembled by humans, and then when it created that poem you fell in love with, it took 3 hours, but every piece was gold. Would you
Yeah.
value it more because it doesn't feel just like a random commodity? It just brought up this really funny metaphor for me where I used to race around in my car all the time, in high school and college, and I had a pretty fast car that was a fairly new car. And I remember I was racing against this friend of mine, and he had a really old piece of shit car. And he said, Mike, it's unfair. I'm like, why? He's like, because you're using 20% of your car's power and I'm using 90% of my car's power and you're beating me every time. Right. And so it's one of these things of like, well, AI has such capacity that for it to write you that poem or that piece of art only took it a fragment of a microsecond, right? Whereas a human's capacity might have taken 5 days to write that same content. So in essence, AI moves so much faster with us in creation that we value it differently. So I might be using 100% of my time or 80% of my time to create a poem. AI is using 0.00001% of its capacity. And thus, like, and maybe the work product's the same, but it feels less fair because it's basically so much faster and better than us.
Yeah, mate, that might be it. I think the other thing also is, again, we intuitively associate time um, spent on a project with energy, in
Mm.
energy expelled, energy invested. And I think energy and value are somewhat interchangeable, maybe not perfectly, but there's some kind of store of energy into the object, and that store of energy represents the value that's contained in that object. And so we have this primordial relationship between time and energy spent, and the energy imbued in that object, like a handmade watch, for example. What we're missing though with our intuitive sense of the world is that AI spends a shitload of energy, like actual electricity. They just does it in massive parallelism globally at the point of request. And so the energy is there, but we're not intuitively reading it because we associate time with energy.
Yeah, if you and looked at the art and it said this took 45 liters of water worth of energy in order to create this art, like maybe we would think of it differently. Because right now, to your point, it feels like an unlimited resource that has no time or energy constraints. And therefore we
Yes.
value it super differently. Like we honestly don't value it. Like we consistently, constantly query it to do stuff. We throw away the work we don't like. We
Yeah.
never apologize. Whereas if we we're working with a human, I was with a guy this morning who used there to code, and he's like, "It's unbelievable to me. I can build an entire thing through coding AI. And unlike with a human, if I don't like it, I tell it, just discard all that work. Let's start over. But with a human, I would never do that because I know they spend so much time, and I'd be concerned about their personal motivation if I told them all their work was wasted. So he's very comfortable wasting AI cycles, which of course we all are. At some point, we'll probably realize there is a real cost to AI. And even though we dispose of it so easily now, and we frankly use it to look up ridiculous things, at some point, maybe there does need to be a limited resource cost to it. So we value it differently.
So what we're really saying is we're using our caveman brains to use state-of-the-art tools, and all of our priors and intuitions are getting in the way. I will disagree with you on that last point. I think water, sanitation, electricity, literally for TVs and whatever, I think those things take way more energy and cost way more. Actually, and all the physical goods we buy and discard with cavalier casualness, like iPads and iPhones, there's enormous energy that goes into those, and we have no, in the Western world, in the wealthy world, we have no concern about that whatsoever. The amount of money, of child welfare, life force that's poured into these things, I don't think we're ever going to really be forced to reckon with the waste.
Totally agree. I totally agree with you.
Just one last point on this as well. Talking about the dispassion and the objective nature of AI, or our belief that it is more objective. I've seen a great YouTube video where they have AI debate AI about really hard topics. They've said, for example, you're a staunch pro-Israel supporter. You have, you believe wholeheartedly Israel has a right to exist to defend itself, and you're a staunch Palestinian supporter. You believe, Palestinians are, occupied and whatever. And it's like, now argue, and these things argue in this like dispassionate, effective, articulate, brilliant way. And they did it about Ukraine and Russia, and about abortion, about everything. And they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in this highly structured, highly effective way. And then they have a panel of AI judges that listen in and then vote for which side won. And so you have this incredible, like, logical effort to unpack topics with this kind of dispassionate, articulate debate. It's incredible. I don't know what the channel is. We'll try to find it in the show notes and link it in the show notes. But yeah, speaking of AI helping to untangle our most deeply held beliefs and and tribal nature, I think this is really, really interesting.
I 100% love that. I'm always hoping there's a world where it's like warfare's fought just like drones via drones, and then we just decide who wins, or debates are AI versus AI, US versus US AI versus Russia AI. Let's like have a debate. Like, it's a super interesting question if you take conflict out of the human component and you drop it into like AI and robotics and technology fighting that for on our behalf.
There's a dystopian Star Trek episode that deals with this. I think now Trekkies are going to jump down my throat, but I think it's called "Let This Be Your Last Battleground." That's my. I want to say that's what it's called. But it's about this race that have been sending robots to attack robots, and Kirk is like, you've been fighting this war for so long with so little consequences that you don't know how to do anything else, and you guys just need to stop this. And I think there was an episode in the original series, and there was an episode in Next Gen, in one of the first episodes, this like little drone chasing Riker around and trying to shoot him. I think that there's, yeah. So last couple of facts here that came out of the Sam Altman one. The one that was most interesting to me, that AI alone acting to diagnose patients is beating the accuracy and effectiveness of AI plus doctor teams. So when you get the AI to do the diagnosis and the work by itself and spit back an answer to the patient, it was more accurate, more effective, more efficacious than if you pair an AI with a doctor, because presumably the doctor would like be not trusting the AI, overriding the AI, adding their own creativity, and kind of, ruining the pure AI diagnosis. Humans are getting in the way, Mike. Humans are getting in the way.
Do you think that's because like when AI was first released and we all suddenly learned this term hallucination? Oh my God, the AI is hallucinating. We started with this general distrust. And so now we're still second guessing the engine because it started with so much false information.
I think so. I also think, and we talked about this 2 or 3 episodes ago, that there was this uncanny valley in AI responses And it's related to that phenomena when you read a newspaper article and you're an expert on that topic, you realize how full of shit the reporting is, and it's just full of lies and misrepresentations. So when you ask ChatGPT about, let's say, product strategy or something you're an expert at, I find the answers to be utterly generic and middling and actually unspecific and useless. Yet when I ask it about other fields, I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I think also we, as experts, we don't trust the AI's expertise, but I think that's a problem of prompting. When you ask generic questions, you get generic answers. When you ask very specific questions, you think you get much more precise answers. And so it's like the old e-commerce days when the first few years of this, people go, watch out for your credit card details. Your credit card information is going to get stolen. And so for like a decade, people were like, I'm not giving my credit card to the internet.
Yeah. Don't use the real name. Don't use the real name on the internet. It's very dangerous. Yeah, I totally agree. It took a while for that to be. So I think all that goes away. I do think it's challenging to think that like, yeah, AI plus doctor equals worse results than just AI alone. But, gosh, like, I mean, I guess over time you would assume that would be true.
And the last thing he said, which I don't think I have fully digested, is this is related to the whole humans won't care about machines because we still care about each other and status and stuff. He said that Paul Buchetti once said to him, there will be machine money and there will be human money, and they will have no relationship to each other. The two economies won't connect. And he said that he found that profound. And I'm trying to understand the profundity for myself. And what I think he's saying is there will be this economy of status and value exchange and concern and an economy, like a dynamic, complex economy between the machines we won't understand or be invested in or have any relationship to. And our economy of status and, money and value exchange will continue to live separately. If I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm not pretending that I am, I think there'll be an exchange rate. I think there'll be some interchange between those things. But I just think it's fascinating to imagine a whole machine world.
I've thought about this a lot with language. So if you think about people using AI to code right now, they're asking AI to generate code, but the code they're generating is so humans can read that code, manipulate that code, parse that code, and then feed it back to a computer. So at some point, AI will have its own coding language only to be read by AI and other computers, right? And actually think about the efficiency, right? Because it's literally taking a computer language, turning it into a human language that's going back to ingest the computer. It's stupid. It's going English to French, back to English, right?
This is like the way we create bullet points and we get ChatGPT to expand our emails. And on the other end, we just ask ChatGPT to summarize the email. And so we're compressing and decompressing it all day long. Yeah.
Yes. So it seems ridiculous to me that's not, I'm assuming that's already happened. But yeah, right now, we're using AI to write human code for computers, but but to your point with the currency, there'll also be a language, right? And that language might be computer instruction, and it'll be much more efficient than what we're using with. It'll probably be faster, it'll be specific to AI, and then we'll have a translator, I assume, to try to take what AI is looking at and translate into human language versus the other way around.
We actually covered something about this called Jabber Talk the other day, where the machines, the voice agents are talking to each other over the phone, and one of them says, hey, I'm an AI actually. And it's like, oh, great, I'm an AI. Do you want to switch to Jabber Talk? And they start sending modem tones down the line, basically. Pretty incredible.